Today on Nova Legends podcast, back with me again is Mount St. Mary's soccer coach Brett Teach, who just took over Mount St. Mary's this year after many years as an assistant at VCU. But not only that, Coach Teach is coach on the Division 1, 2, and 3 level, both boys and girls, and NAIA. He's got tons of experience, won a lot of big games, been to many postseason tournament. Coach, thanks a lot for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. Well, it's funny. A friend of mine called me up today, and his son plays for Army. His son's name is Gage Lyons. You may have recruited him. He's a really good striker from McLean. But he said, Julian, did you hear about the new ruling? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's just colleges can give as many scholarships as they want for soccer. I'm like, no. So why isn't this big news? And I hadn't heard anything about it. So yeah, I guess a couple weeks ago there was a settlement, the House settlement with the NCAA, and it just kind of changed everything. So there's now a roster limit of 28 players for soccer. Other sports are different, and schools can have the discretion to give as many full or partial scholarships as you want. And that this is to me groundbreaking, but maybe it's not so much. But so, Coach, why hadn't I heard more about this? And what was your first reaction when you heard about this?
Well, I think there's a lot more to it than just all of a sudden this removal of limits. First of all, programs, conferences, etc., and school by school or conference by conference, you have to opt into the settlement. So if you don't opt in, then the new rules don't apply to you. So I would imagine, and I don't want to speak for any other school. I'm certainly not going to speak for my school because I don't make those decisions. They make it above me. But I can imagine that some schools will go through the process and say, we can't afford this. And so we're just going to opt out and we'll stay in our conference. We'll go by the old set of rules. And so my understanding, and again, I don't have a perfect understanding of it, is it's really about what the school, conference, et cetera, opts to do. So if we opt into the settlement, and this being anybody, then we are now bound by the new rules. We have a roster limit of 28. We have all the pieces along go with it. We can scholarship all 28. We can have one scholarship and have 27 guys that are walk-ons. But you can have 28 players. That's your maximum. And it starts to fall 25. I think one of the reasons that maybe it's not huge news. It is pretty big news, but it's not huge news is because I think the way things are changing right now, who knows what it's going to be in 3 months? Who knows what the application is going to be in a year when it comes into place? Because there's a year until it comes into place. And I think also the advent of everybody starting practices and this year's just kind of business as usual. So I think we're all just kind of, okay, let's see where all the puzzle pieces fall. And let's start piecing that together and see what's best because obviously decisions aren't going to be made for men's soccer, women's soccer, lacrosse, volleyball. They're going to be made at the executive level to say what fits our university the best. And so I think that a lot of schools, I was a friend of mine who's on a committee on the women's side, was on a committee with a number of now they're called Autonomous 4 programs, but the schools that have the money, basically. And there was an SEC school said that if they were to go to the maximum, all the sports that they sponsor, that their scholarship budget would go from like 280 million to like 750 million, and said we can't even afford that, and we can, and we're one of the ones who can afford to do this, because it's a major school with major money and it's in the SEC, so it's a gigantic program. The coach was from there. And so just saying that, this is going to be a reckoning that everybody has to come to a decision of what fits their model the best. A lot of schools use roster numbers to help with enrollment in their school. So it doesn't make sense for schools to do that, to opt into something like this, because you're capped at 28 when maybe you'd like to have 33 or 34 or 35. And that's how you fund your assistant coach. That's how you fund other things. And I'm not speaking for any school in particular. I'm just saying that there are so many models of Division I programs. You look in just our area alone, you have Loyola, us, teams like that, Georgetown, then you have UVA, Virginia Tech, Maryland, who are going to be a different plane. Then you have William and Mary and and some of the smaller public schools. Then you have gigantic schools like Mason, VCU, James Madison. James Madison plays football though, so they might be you know what I mean? So all just in our little DMV area, you're going to have a variety of Division I schools that are going to have to make choices that fit their universities the best. Because, again, without football, it doesn't really, the money just doesn't make sense. If you have football and you're generating millions of dollars, that's one thing. But if you don't, and your basketball program's your key, then you're going to have to look at, okay, well, what sports can we really fund? And maybe the limit's 28, but you may have 3. Figure it out. Or
Yeah.
we can have a program. I mean, so I think that your schools are just going to go through and have to make choices that fit their particular model. And I think that's why probably the news, like baseball went from 11.7 allowable scholarships to 34.
Wow.
Yeah, see, so like I'm old enough now that I remember all this stuff happening. You and I are the same generation. By the way, I did talk to Moose about you, by the way.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you wanted me to say hello
Good old Mookie.
podcast and stuff. So one of the things that, because nobody back in the day in the early 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, nobody took Title IX seriously. Well, the reason we got to these weird scholarship numbers was in like 90, 91, all Division I men's sports took a 10% cut across the board. So men's soccer used to have 11. And so the way to determine your number was they would say, what does the roster need and how many extra do they need? So men had 11 because we had 11 players. Baseball had 15 because they had determined, no, they had 13, excuse me, they had 13 scholarships because they determined they needed 9 starters and 4 pitchers. This is back for DH, obviously. Then and that's how they did. They went through and just picked numbers. Well, that's why baseball's 11.7 because they had 1.3. So they got cut 10%. So that's how the weird numbers came to be as they are anyway. They took a 10% cut back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I think so it's and so the NCAA has been a little bit slow to react to. I mean, everybody be slow to react to this because the world's changing so quickly in this environment. So I think that's really what you're looking at. Is a lot of athletic directors and presidents of universities and boards of trustees and they're having to look at things realistically and say, okay, what can we do? We want to have athletics because it enhances the program's viability, but we're not putting 100,000 people in a football stadium each week. So how do we best fit into this model? And so I think that's why maybe it's not been as publicized as, because everybody thinks, oh, 28 full rides. Yeah, that's great. Well, is it? Is it? How many are going to actually do that?
Yeah.
I mean, like you take, like an in-state scholarship in Virginia is roughly $60,000 all in. All right. So you tell me who can afford 1.8 million in scholarship dollars for men's soccer or women's soccer? Almost nobody. That's a lot of money.
So the schools probably, I mean, they probably didn't really desire this for soccer because the way it was before, kids were just happy to be on rosters. If they got some money, they were happy. But there were no shortage of kids that wanted to play Division I soccer. It's not like you guys needed this for soccer. So it seems to me that it was interesting because I don't even think there was a big cry for this for soccer on the coach's side. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think actually, I think it's probably more concerning because there could end up being a big gulf with teams who do this and teams who don't. Who are able to go to, 28 in some manner. Maybe it's a combination of in and out of state players, I don't know. Again, I just know that at every school that I have worked at, which, I've been at several over the last 40 years, none of them could afford to put 28 into men's and women's soccer, 56 scholarships. I mean, that's an inordinate amount. You could do 4 programs with that, So I think that everybody's having to look at, okay, we have a 28 man roster limit or player roster limit. How can we, within our financial capabilities, create the best opportunity for us to have a program we're proud of, but also balance the budget? I mean, I think you have a year where FAFSA's gone crazy. Nobody can get their financial aid sorted out. You have, I was reading today that Frostburg State's having real financial stress. That's a state school. It's not a private school.
Yeah.
Private
Beautiful
schools
school.
everywhere are struggling. And it's because, again, there's a real competition for every dollar that students are willing to spend. And right now, sports are a way that you're competing for those dollars.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, as well as I do, at 10 scholarships, the majority of players are paying something,
Yeah.
and probably at least half of what it costs to go to school they choose to go to. And again, we pay for that because it's an American way of life, right? You go to college, you do this, and there's a great experience. You get a nice discount on college. Great, I'll take it, I'll go. Well, now they're looking at, okay, if I do have 28 full rides, how likely am I going to be to take the project player from, let's say, Richmond? I'll just use Richmond because it's my area, versus a ready-made player from Canada or from, you know, Norwegian country or Norway or Scandinavian country or something. And I think that's where you have to, because again, there are also the other part of this that has come into play this year is there are now scholarship protections for players. So any freshman who starts this year and is on your roster, except for the most heinous of acts, basically will not lose their money unless they get in the portal or become ineligible. But if they choose to stay at the school, and even though they may not be on the team or play, then there are scholarship protections now in place where in the past we've always been able to non-renew a player really for any reason. It's a 1-year contract, whatever. Well, that's no longer the case. And that began August 1. So you're combining a very strong and student athlete protection process with the scholarships.
And that you can opt in. You have to opt in to get scholarship protection, or is that
No,
one?
that's in. That's in.
That's
in.
it.
That's not part of the settlement. That's part of the NCAA trying to become more protective of student athletes.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because again, I think the transfer portal has opened up all these different unintended consequences in terms of like coaches will say you need to get in the portal and you got to leave, and these kids may not want to leave. And so in other years where like a new coach comes in, for instance, and decides that, well, I didn't really recruit these guys, I don't know that I want, and I'm doing that right now. Maybe I don't want to pay, 50% for this player. Maybe I feel like I could get somebody better, whatever. You could do that. Now, if you had any kind of ethical, moral compass at all, you're going to help that player either stay and somehow or help them get to another program. And I think most in soccer, most of us do, because very rarely are you going to get fired for one bad season in soccer. Football, basketball, you might get the axe. But in soccer, as long as the kids get along and you do a good job and there's growth in the student athletes, you've got a little bit of time in Division I anyway to put your program in place. So I think that, it really is now incumbent upon the coaching staff to make sure they get it right when you bring in a player, because they have these scholarship protections, which locks them into your program. And maybe, and you don't have to have them on a team, but they're still getting that money. And so I don't know, many schools are going to say, well, they can stand the money, we'll just give you more. If they're on a squad list, they don't count your scholarship total. Well, that's true, but I think there's going to be some real doubts about that too. So I think it's an interesting convergence of scholarship protections, which quite frankly have been in place for a while anyway, but I think they've just changed it to where it's the student really has to make a mistake of pretty big proportion to be let go. Now they can still go in the portal but if like if a coach says, hey, you need to go in the portal, there's scholarship and protection in place. They say, I don't want to go. They don't go. And they'll keep their money for the rest of the time. So again, if I've got 28 scholarships and I know that protection's in place, I'm going to go get the best 28 players I can get, rather than have a long range plan. Because the way I coach and the way we did at VCU, the way I've done everywhere I've been, is I have a blend of players. They all have talent that I think could get them to the point where they contributed at a Division I level. But I have timetables in some of them where I think, you take the typical high school kid coming out, most of them are not ready to play at this level. They just aren't, because again, there's a gap. Just like when they leave college, very few are ready to step into MLS and play.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids view college soccer is a step above club. It's not, it's a step below MLS. And there's a big difference there. And I think that one of my pleasures in this business is taking a kid from point A to point Z in their career and saying, make it. And we had a great model. Coach Gifford down at VCU has had this model in place for years. When we went in together there, he did a great job of looking for guys who had talent, but maybe weren't ready. Something wasn't quite right. And our job was to get that right. So again, it won't change what I do here because I'd be stunned if we opted in. But that's not my choice. And I'm not trying to make a decision for the school either. I'll make that very clear. But just because I think that, we are a school that we're smaller, we value every student here. And so I think that we're always going to be about opportunities to give players opportunities. So I just don't think that you're going to see that model change. It may, over the years, it may move a little bit, but it's not going to ever change to where it's all about money and this and that. So I think there's a real, there's going to be a real, I would guess, competition within each staff is how do we build this roster if they're opted in and if they truly do have 28 full scholarships, because you're stuck with that person. I don't mean that in a bad way, but you are.
Yeah.
Right. And then number two, 28 is not a big number. So if you have 2 or 3 that for whatever reason don't make it, but they stay in school and you only have 25 players now, or 25 scholarships now, or whatever you want to call it, and you graduate 7 or 8, all of a sudden you're down 3 positions, and that's hard, So that means you're training this spring without a full squad. I mean, you're training 19. That means can you imagine playing, but you're a basketball guy, right?
Yeah.
Imagine practicing and not being able to play 5v5.
Yeah. It's hard.
Well, it's the same in spring. I mean, it's like, one of the reasons I like larger squads is so that we can train 11 versus 11 at times during the spring. And so we can do a lot of growth through a bigger game model. And so I just think that that it will lead to a great deal of variation to how people do it. So I think that's one of the reasons, to the long answer to your question, I know, but something why I think you'll see a lot of squads go different ways, and maybe it opens up more money for players, but maybe it opens up less. I'm not sure which way that'll go.
Well, coach, is the roster limit, is that something you opt in or out of? Is that part of that?
That's opt in.
Okay.
Yes.
So you don't have to do that either.
Yeah. So if you don't opt in, and we just had a meeting we had our annual athletic department retreat a couple days ago, and this is a big topic of discussion, obviously, as to what this actually means. And from what we were told by our athletic director and by our compliance people is, if we as long as we don't opt in, then we're not part of the 28 roster limit. We're not part of the increased money, because quite frankly, it just doesn't make sense for us. We're not going to oppose anything. We're not going to, because again, no matter what we do, we're not going to compete with Maryland. We're not going to compete with Virginia. We're different schools. So I think we're not going to say, oh, well, you can't do this, because again, it is just the way things are going. And I think that, I think instead, for us, we have to do what works for us. And so, without opting in, you're not bound by the 28. But as far as I know, and I don't know this, if this is correct, I would still think we'd be bound by the 9.9. Based on, I don't think all of a sudden it's going to be the Wild West if you don't opt in. I think it'll be more 28 the other way.
Now, and do you think teams and conferences are going to opt in together, or do you think like Mount St. Mary's will choose and then Marist, or I've got some of the teams in your conference? Is there going to be a thing where a conference is going to opt in, or do you think it's going to be school by school? And how many schools do you think what percentage of schools, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what percentage of schools do you think will opt in?
I think the Autonomous Four will. So I think the major programs, they'll all opt in, because again, the whole idea for them comes down to football, basketball, not so much us, men's soccer, women's soccer. And a number of those schools, like 2 of those 4 conferences, don't even play soccer. So, you got the SEC doesn't play men's soccer. And then, well, the Big Ten kind of does. So you do have like the ACC and the Big Ten both play. The big, whatever it's called now, Big 12, whatever it's called now.
I can't keep track.
Going east in the Midwest, they don't.
Yeah.
So two of the autonomous four that do play, two that don't. So they're going to opt in, but that's not really going to affect a few schools. In terms of the conference by conference or school by school, I honestly don't know what the rules are there. So I couldn't speak intelligently to whether you have to go as a conference or if you go as an individual school. I'd imagine you go as an individual school. So I think certain conferences will just go in all together, but I think it'll be more of an individual school type thing, you know.
Yeah.
So I think I mean it is possible you'd get into, the MAC, for instance, and you have Marshall and Kentucky, and maybe they opt in, but maybe two or three other schools in that league say, we're not going to opt in, we're going to stay out of it. The other thing that our athletic director told us yesterday is you cannot pick and choose whether you opt in or not. So if you opt in one sport, you're in all your sports, even if you don't fund them.
Right.
So, now you're, what I mean? So it's a difference. But again, I still think we're all just waiting to see where the dust settles.
Yeah. Well, one thing you mentioned earlier, you mentioned scholarship protection, and also obviously with the portal, um, players can transfer without restriction and play right away. It seems like the power has really shifted from the coaches. Back when me and you played college sports, if you chose the wrong school, you were stuck there. If you want to move, you had to sit out a year. You really had to make that decision because the coach, I don't want to say he owned you, but he had a lot of power over you. Seems like now that power has shifted to the player.
Yeah, what I would say too is I think what's happened is, again, I'll go back to the example I used earlier with Title IX. I think one of the hard things, and anytime you have a governing body that's made up of members. So the NCAA, everybody else says the NCAA is like this evil entity. It's not. It's all of us. It's all schools,
It's like when you say the UN is evil. It's just like it's all the countries that are voting. It's only as evil as the people that vote. So
obviously the NCAA is really the collection of all of us.
yeah.
But I think what whenever you have a big governing body like that, there tends to be a slowing of reactions to the way things are. Like if you go through, for years, kids should have been able to transfer. I mean, it's terrible that it was so difficult because, quite frankly, if you or I'll tell you right now, somebody offers me $100,000 more than I'm making today, I'm gone. You keep all stuff in my office. I'm out. I love it here, but that's the economic reality of where we are.
Yeah.
I'm unhappy. There's nothing that protects me from leaving. There's nothing stops me. So why in the world, if a student athlete is out of school and they are not happy, why can't they just go? I mean, there shouldn't be, I've got to go get a release. No, just go. Just tell us you want to go and go. And so what happens is because we were so slow as a governing body to react to something that's obviously illegal, really, you have to then understand that now the transfer portal is an overreaction because it's an overcorrection. It's like the market dropped 1,000 points yesterday. Well, it's an overcorrection. Well, this is an overcorrection. Now you get into NIL. Well, how in the world can we pay a coach $8 million and our kid's not making any money?
Yeah.
That's not fair. It's not fair. But could we have designed something 20 years ago that allowed players to create some type of wealth from their work, quite frankly?
Yeah.
And look, I'm an old time guy. I'm not a new guy with this opinion. I'm 60 years old. I've been in this a long time, but I feel like these guys who have made many coaches multimillionaires, that have made millions of dollars in games and activities, and why in the world can they not even get money for a flight home if they need it? Why is there any, again, so what happens is an overcorrection, and now it's the Wild West. Now it's like, okay, it's a mini, in fact, it's worse than pro baseball or soccer. At least there's some kind of rules. Like right now, there's no rule. If you have a really good point guard, and let's say you play the year in your league, well, an SEC school or ACC is going to offer you $1 million, $2 million a year to transfer. And you know what? If I'm the coach, I'm packing his bag to help him go because that's not changing money.
Yeah.
But why? I mean, somebody offer me $1 million more. See ya. You'll never see me. Good luck to you.
We'll miss you, Coach. Hey, well, Coach. So, Coach, what I was going to say is, what effect is this going to have on Division III schools? Like, for example, let's say I can get a scholarship at UVA or whatever, but even though I might not play, they can now. It's more easy for them to offer me money.
Mhm.
Before, I may have wanted to go to Division III school where I know I can play, but now because most of the Division I schools aren't offering much money anyway. Do you think this is going to have an effect on Division III schools, or because there's not a lot of schools that are going to be affected by it, it probably won't have a measurable effect?
My opinion is very simply, I don't think it's going to have I don't think it's going to have as big an effect getting them players that they would like to get as they think. I don't think it's going to like hurt them because again, I think if you are one of the schools that has this astronomical amount of money, there comes great pressure to get it right. And so I think that you're going to be probably more apt to spend an international player, quite frankly, or an MLS Academy guy. And see, unlike like football or basketball now, very simply, those kids, there's no reason to leave college early anymore. If you're making $2 million a year playing basketball at North Carolina, let's say, there's no reason to leave early. So you might as well develop and make money. And now you're set for life. If you get an NBA contract, great. If you don't, great. Well, soccer, you're still not going to get those 18 and 19-year-old kids who are prodigies, the Griffin Yows, if you will, to use a Northern Virginia. He's not going to college because he's going to make enough money, and he's really not going to get enough NIL money from Virginia to make him not go to not go pro. So I think that what you'll see is my guess would be that where like most programs they'll have some sort of money, they'll make it up with walk-ons. So I think there's still going to be a significant amount of small to really partial to whatever type scholarship money for those kids. So I think player 22 to 28 in most programs will still be low to no money guys. I don't ever see that component going away. Like a number of players at a lot of major universities, they get other types of money that is greater than they would get for soccer anyway. I know like North Carolina and UVA and some of these schools that I've competed against recruiting wise, because they're so well endowed as a school, they're able to go get the types of students that they want, whatever it is, whether high academic, whatever. And so the school will compete for the student athletes or students, not so much athlete part of it, that they want. And, you may get an opportunity that, and that's why I think it'll actually hurt a school like UVA or Carolina, where this kid before would have been a full scholarship type kid and you could take him in the program. Well, if you've taken a kid in the program, it's a roster limit of 28. Doesn't matter how good that kid is. He's either going to go for a year free and sit and then join the team a year later, or, go somewhere else. So I think that you won't see a lot of Division I parking guys. I just don't think many are going to opt into 28. Now, maybe they opt in, but they don't opt in and have 28 full rides for all the sports. Because remember, Title IX is still a law. It's not a suggestion, it's a law. So you give 28 to men's soccer, you can only equal it with women's soccer, because before the women were allowed 14, men were allowed 9.9. So there was a lot more money on the women's side, so you could begin that balance. So I think that, basically you've got to look at it and say, okay, we've also, because that's the other side of the coin, you've got to still be in compliance with gender equity. And so in Title IX compliance, it's not, again, these aren't suggestions, by the court. These are rulings that you have to follow. So I'm not gonna say, I'm just not gonna follow that this year. No, it's not the way it works. All right. So you're still going to somehow have to balance that budget. So let's say you're getting baseball 34. Well, where are those women's scholarship opportunities going to come from?
Yeah.
Well, women's soccer, well, okay. But if you get men 28, that, right now women were +5, basically 5.1. So now all of a sudden there are just so many things that people who are a lot smarter than I am are going to have to come to and figure out conclusions. For me, that's why they have PhD next to their name and I have coach, so.
Well, you're a really smart coach. Well, Coach, what about, like, you coach many of the Cosby kids. I think 4 or 5 Division I players on that team and lots of Division III players on that team. What do you think that would do to kids like that? I would think with the Hayes brothers and Ryan and Evan, those guys probably have a chance to get a little bit more money, maybe. So it's going to affect them in a good way. And then the kids that are playing Division III, do you think in the future there'll be more pressure on those kids to play harder, study, to train more because they'll be more likely to get Division I scholarships? So what's going to happen to the club players growing up? Are they going to have more opportunities now, or do you think it's more of those spots are going to be taken by international players? It might not have as profound effect as we think.
I honestly, I think the players, it is gonna help if they're open to different schools, would be kids like you mentioned, the Hayeses and guys like that, because they are talented players. And I could see a coach taking a look at them and saying, you know what? I could see this kid or that kid, let's call him John Smith, because I don't want to tamper with other people's players. But let's say it's John Smith from, Make Believe High School. And he's a pretty good player, but I think there's a high top end there. I may be willing to go ahead and go, hey, because again, the majority of schools aren't going to have 28 full rides. So let's say you have 20 scholarships and then you have 8 pieces. I may be very tempted to say, I can give this kid a piece, because if he does what I think he'll do, he'll end up being a starter and I'll have to put him on a full. But if he doesn't, I'm willing to gamble, because we're going to need that depth in that role no matter what. I'm willing to gamble, half scholarship, quarter scholarship, whatever it is. So I think the players that are what I would call good enough to be considered an elite Division I type player, maybe not right away, I think it will actually help those guys, because I do think that you will see schools do more like, we did with Andreas when he came out. We scholarshiped him, but not to where there was room in the end that if he improved, he could meet it, because we weren't 100% sure, but we were pretty sure he'd be successful at VCU. And so, and I'm sure that that's played itself out over the years, and I think you'll see a lot more of that type of thing where, okay, I like that kid. I've got, let's say I have 4 quarter scholarships and I have 4 half scholarships. I think this kid's a little bit of a gamble. We'll give him a quarter. So I do think you could see that helping quite a bit. I think that other kids or other teams who have opted in are going to be really choosy about those last 4 to 6 spots, because in order to be a good, sustainably excellent program, player 24 through 28 have to contribute. And that doesn't mean in that, like in year 1, but somewhere along the line, they're going to need to be key guys. Because if not, like I told you, with scholarship protection, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Unless you can somehow convince them that they'd be better off going somewhere else. But if you're getting a half scholarship at University of Virginia or at North Carolina or at Georgetown, you're not giving that up, because that's worth 10 times its weight in gold when you're done, because of what you're going to benefit long-term in your life. So if I'm a kid there, I'd never give that up. Why would I? That's silly. That's a great educational opportunity.
So it's interesting because when the guy who Michael Lyons, Gage's father, who's the one that called me up about this decision, he said he thought it was going to hurt high school ball, because he said, look, there's going to be so much scholarship money available that folks are going to be afraid to play high school. From what you're saying, though, it's more likely to help kids who already are good enough to play Division I. It's not going to all of a sudden make kids that weren't Division I capable. It's just going to help the ones that are already, the Hayes brothers or Evan or Ryan. It's going to help the ones that are already good enough to play Division I.
Yeah, the reason I say that is because, again, when you combine the increased opportunity to give scholarship money with the increased level scholarship protection that kids have, the quite frankly, the value of each one of those 28 slots is gigantic. And so you don't want to say, okay, we'll take a flyer on this kid. We'll give him a quarter scholarship. No, because number one, that money's married to you, but 2, the slot's taken. And again, I think you have to understand that, everybody has to buy in to create a culture. One kid can ruin it. One coach can ruin it. One manager, anybody can ruin it. So if you're a player 26 and you're not bought into the same high level as everybody else in your team, then you can hurt it. And as a coach, you're a little bit powerless to replace them. You can certainly have rules in your team and you can figure out how to have them not on your roster. But if you're opted in, you have 28 spots. I'm not sure that you can replace him with somebody else, certainly not with money. And so now you've lost a money place for a walk-on spot, even if he's off your squad list. And again, I think these are still I heard a great quote in our staff meeting the other day. The plane's already left, but we're still building it. So, I mean, I think that's a great way to put it. We got wings, we got a motor, but we have no seats and we have no body. We're just flying and we'll see what happens. So I thought that was a great quote. I wish I could say it was me, but it wasn't.
Well, that was good. Well, the teams that opt in, would you think a coach's job, you spend so much time recruiting, does your job also become fundraising then? Is it important for you to raise money to find sponsors? Because if they opt in, it seems like to me, some of the scholarship money that you can have available is money that you can help bring in with sponsors or NIL or whatever. So does that kind of also add that to the list of things a coach has to do?
Yeah, except the problem well, not the problem, but the challenge is it takes about to endow a scholarship is going to take, like, if let's say your school costs $50,000, it's going to take $800,000 of actual cash to endow that scholarship, and that's at a 7% interest rate. I mean, that might be mythical right now based on where we are. So you're probably talking about $1 million to endow a $50 scholarship. So look, we got some amazing coaches in this country who are able to do a lot of things. They fundraise, they do this, but to raise $1 million for one of 28 scholarships, to raise 28 million or 10 million or whatever, that's tough.
Yeah.
So I think that the fundraising may go more toward, operations or enhancements. And yes, I do think there's going to be an emphasis on this. I mean, there is here at Mount St. Mary's, there's an emphasis on us, connecting with alums and growing our financial backing. But I think scholarship wise, I think that's going to always be a discount. I don't see any way you endow that money, unless you just have somebody's going to write a check, and that's forever. You're talking about the better part of $1 million to endow one scholarship. So I think more likely is, let's say for whatever reason your school gives you, they triple your scholarship budget. Let's say you go from 9.9 to 28, because that's roughly tripling, almost tripling your budget. They're certainly not going to touch your operations. So you're going to have to, if you're going to want to be able to go to Japan to recruit or Norway to recruit or these different places, and it's not in your budget currently. In fact, I could see it going the opposite way, that you just redirect money from one pool to another.
Yeah.
Say, okay, the budget is this, because I know several schools have larger operations budget than others. I can see to say, well, this is your operations, this is what you got. And here's where we're going to take the other money and we're going to enhance your scholarship budget. So you got to fundraise, you want to do anything else. And I just think the only way this is going to work, like let's project 5 years ahead. And let's say in a perfect world, everybody's opted in, everybody's doing it. Well, I think what you're going to see then is you have to have regional leagues. I think the only way this works financially is that, schools like Mount St. Mary's, Loyola, Maryland, Virginia, George Mason, all the schools, DMV, we're all aligned in some way. And maybe we're not in the same conference, but we are in the same region for NCAA type things. Because right now, Stanford has to come to Duke to play. Right, well, that makes no sense. $40,000, $50,000 trip. That makes no sense. And now you're saying, okay, on top of that, you got to put 28 scholarships into this, which, again, Duke's got a lot of money. But I'm looking at that as, okay, what's my return on this? What am I getting out of this?
Yeah.
And and that's why I think the 28 is simply a roster limit. Some schools may choose to do it. But I could see schools say, okay, like the NAI, the old mouth NAI, you could have 30 guys on full rides if you were smart with how you did it, because the NAI model, they wanted schools to be able to get as many players as they want. And because again, this helps their tuition bottom line, right?
Mhm.
And so if you got a kid with 3.25 to a 3.5, they only count half of their scholarship. So if you're giving a full, they counted 50%. Anything above 3.6 didn't count at all. So you
Wow.
just go, guys, look, you stay above a 3.6, keep your scholarship. You don't, you lose it. So you would have programs who they would go get 20 of those guys. They have 20 guys in full rides, but you have to keep it 3.25 or better. And then they'd go get the end of the roster guys to get to 40 maybe, and they're paying full freight. Well, I mean, you're not doing that with a roster limit of 28.
No,
It's just
exactly.
money out the door. It's not money
Yeah.
coming back. At some point, you got to look at it and say, is this the way we should invest our money? Or should we maybe give them a good amount, but then get some return by having some kids pay to be here? And again, my father was in public education for a long time. He was a dean and a vice president of Georgia Tech for 34 years. And I can tell you his opinion would be that, there's got to be some kind of middle ground, because he was an athletic. I mean, he was played football briefly at Ohio State. So he briefly, very briefly, when he saw him,
Woody Hayes.
retired quickly. But, he would be the first to say, we need to really consider how does this work in the overall balance of what we can do financially. So I think that's probably going to be the big challenge, is going to be how do we balance it financially, and can we find a way to raise enough money to help maybe supplement our operations if we just decide to enhance our scholarship budgets, or to just go 9.9, you got 28 spots. Because I can see that happening too, where they say you got 28 spots, you got 10 scholarships to fill, because that's what we do now. I mean, that's what everybody does now. You got 10 scholarships to essentially fill 28 spots, because most rosters are between 26 and 40,
And you've coached women's soccer in your career. Do you think the changes to the women's game is any different than the changes in the men's game?
I think that you could see, yes, I do, because I do think you could see like the autonomous four looking at this as a way to counterbalance football, or to counterbalance the other sports they choose to fund. And so I could see Florida State, North Carolina, UCLA, schools like that, who have the financial wherewithal to get to that point. Because right now, nobody blinked an eye at 14. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, yeah, we always go to 14 automatically. I mean, there are, I would imagine 70%, I'm guessing, of Division I schools are fully funded at the girls level in some manner. So I would be stunned if there wasn't a marked increase in women's scholarships. It may not be at 28, but I could certainly see 21, 22. You got 22 to find 28. And because again, it counterbalances, the men's sport. Like this football also went up. They went up to, I think, 105, maybe. They went up a significant amount. Not as much like baseball had the biggest jump from 11.7 to 34. But if you decide to fund baseball, like I said, the Title IX gender equity still has to be met. So you got to find another way. And again, it doesn't have to be equal, because there are a lot of different measuring sticks to use. But I do think that I could see women's sports in general being more toward their maximums than men's sports.
That's good. That's great for the girls' game. Oh, Coach, this has been great. Thanks for jumping on a short notice. Last question. How are you enjoying your first week of practice? I know the boys are just arriving and getting settled in. How's it been the first week so far?
Yeah, well, obviously we're in and getting really started today. So it's great. I mean, I've been looking forward to this. I had a really busy summer. I think, I coached an NPSL team all summer, and my team kept winning. So we went for a long time, went all the way to semifinals. We lost in the semifinal up in FC Motown a week and a half ago. So we were one game away from playing for a title. A little disappointing we didn't get there, but but during that last week of the season, I came back to campus because we had a big camp on campus, and it was just time. I was like, it was ready to get my guys here, ready to get going. We've recruited so many guys. We brought in 23 guys. So just excited to see everybody get together and kind of see where we are. And I know we had a really productive spring. And so it's fun. This is always a fun time of year. I think whenever it doesn't like really wake me up in the morning, then I think it's time to call today. And I love what I'm doing. I love the renewal that this brings you each year. The kids moving in, the coming out to practice. You see the freshmen are a bit nervous. They don't know what's going on. And the returners think they know it all, but really they don't know anything. And it's just a great moment in time because, I know if as a staff we get it right, that we're going to affect and change those kids' lives forever.
Yeah.
And because I know how much my career meant to me, and what I still talk to my college coach every week.
Mhm.
Every week. I mean, he came to a couple of my Columbus games. Then when I was in Georgia, he's been up to practice up here several times. And he lives in Roanoke, and we're just super close. And I know what that period of my life meant to me. So I never take that responsibility or really honor lightly. I know that the opportunity to help young people bridge the gap from their teenage years to adulthood is special, but it's a large responsibility. And I think anybody who doesn't enter it with excitement, with, joy, quite frankly, probably need to go do something else, because that's the reward of this business. I mean, look, I've coached a long time, won a lot of things. I got a lot of trophies laying around. If you look at my office walls, I got coach of the year stuff all over the place. I don't, I don't care about any of that. What I care about is the fact that when I went down to Columbus, I saw players who played for me 30 years ago.
Mm.
They call me coach and they're 50 years old. And they're way more successful in a lot of ways than I'll ever be. Like one of the largest companies in the world, a company called Global Payments, one of my former payment players is CEO.
Wow.
I have another guy from the same team is now the head of CNN International. So he runs all the international news for CNN. And he's obviously a giant in his industry. I got guys who are retired, because they've been so successful. And yet they all come and talk to me about what, playing and being with us meant to them. And so, like I said, it offers a renewal each year. And I genuinely, I think I'm one of the few people in life that's gotten to do exactly what he's put here to do.
Mm.
And so I just love doing this. I love being a part of it. I'm thrilled to get my guys here finally. It's been, because we, it's been okay. We got this. You should see my depth chart. It's crazy. We got like 1 million players on the board right now. But they all can play.
Mm.
And I'm really excited about the journey that each one of them is about to take. And I know there'll be challenges along the way. Those don't bother me. I just want a group that wants to do their best. And I think we've done a great job of getting guys that aspire to play at a high level. Now, can you do it? That's really the test, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're excited about it. So I think I'm always that way though. I just, like I said, I genuinely love what I do. I love impacting people at this age. And what's crazy is, as much as people say, "Oh, coaches affected me," I'll be quite honest with you. The players I've worked with and then meeting them later in life has affected me probably more than I ever affected them.
Yeah.
Just because I see him and I'm like, man, well, that's how great that kid turned out that way. Or no, that doesn't surprise me. One of my teammates, college teammates, is vice president of Liberia right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Wasn't his coach, but I played with him. But and then you have other guys who make it. I have a former player, it's an NFL coach. I have a couple of former players that are involved in coaching in MLS, and so and it's not because of me. It's just really cool to see those players make their steps there and fulfill their dreams. And that to me is what's really exciting is when somebody didn't play a lot for you. And I've had that happen 2 or 3 times this year, where I had a young man, well, not young, he's probably 50 now, but he played for me way back in Division III days at Oglethorpe. And he texted me out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to this guy since the day I left Oglethorpe to go to Georgia State.
Mm.
So we've not kept in touch or anything. I got a Facebook message that said, "Coach, I really wanted to let you know how much you meant to me and how I use what you taught us every day in my teaching." I was like, "What?" I said, "Matt, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well," he said, "I just remember you kept talking to us about obstacles. You go through them, you go over them, go under them, or you go around them." And I used to say, something's in the way, put cones around it, go around it, figure it out. And and I was 25 years old. I know what I was talking about, but I just was, somebody else I said it and I stole it, but he said he used that every day in his teaching when he's dealing with the students, because he deals with both gifted and then both, those that have a little bit of needs. So he works on both ends of the spectrum, as it were. And he said it's really funny because the gifted students, when they run into an obstacle, it's really difficult for them. And I always go back, well, Coach Teacher always told me this. And I think that that's really the cool part, when somebody you barely, I have a really good memory, so I remember most everybody, but knock on wood. But the reality is those players in the end are the ones that really tell you if you did a good job or not.
Yeah.
And so long answer to your question. I don't usually give a short one. Sorry about that. But now I'm excited for the renewal. I can't wait to get going. We'll be in a matter of hours. We'll have our first one, and the 11 aside. I think the guys will love it. We'll give them a little taste of dessert first, as my old boss used to say all the time. Give them a little dessert first, but then comes the vegetables. So it'll be vegetable the rest of the week, but this week, because we play in 6 days, 7 days.
Yeah.
With Loyola and our friendlies
Well,
next Tuesday. So a week from today. Yeah.
Well, Coach, I'll be at the Binghamton game, so hopefully I'll get a chance to say hi to you. I just, as a coach, sometimes coaches aren't always paid that much, especially in the high school level. But I always say you're richly rewarded in the influence you have on your players. That's what coaches are. Look, I really appreciate you explaining this to me. I think you did a great job of laying that out. It's, it is the Wild West. We no one has a crystal ball, but I think common sense is going to have to prevail, because pockets are only so deep. And so, but look, this has been great as always. And I think you play Binghamton on the 16th. So I think that sounds.
22nd, I believe.
What's that?
22nd, I believe,
22nd.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
So
yeah,
playing for that, I'm gonna hear from the NCAA. So
exactly. So I look forward to seeing you there then, Coach, because I don't live that far away. But again, I appreciate you coming on and with your views, and it was a great chat.
always a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, of course, Coach. Have a good day. Good luck in practice.